Hello, I'm Lucas. This is Strike the Sun MD. I'm in my sleeping robe. My girlfriend's, I suppose. I'm in the kitchen. She's sick, and I don't want to bother her and wake her up. She's been sleeping all day. So let's have not quite a book review, but like a book talk, book discussion about East-West Street on the origins of genocide and crimes against humanity, which came with a high recommendation from Steve to everybody in a number of his videos, and I finally got around to it. It's sort of a history of law or international law, and it's about the two men. I have some notes here to make sure I, have some semblance of what I'm trying to say. Raphael Lemkin, who was oh gosh, I should have written it down, the grandfather of Phillipe Sands, the author, and Hirsch Lauterpacht, who they were both from Lviv, Ukraine, or Lemberg, as it was called then, and it was part of, not the Austro-Hungarian Empire, because that was gone. Well, anyway, it's in Ukraine now. And they both lived on this east-west facing street, and they had the same schools, same education, both became lawyers and happened to get out at the right time before the Third Reich committed all kinds of horrible atrocities throughout Europe, including Lviv, Ukraine, where our third character, main character, Hans Frank, the personal lawyer of Hitler, oversaw the genocide, I guess, of 1 million Jews in that area, or 1 million people. Maybe they weren't all Jews, but some of those people, including Lauterpacht's family, possibly Lemkin's family too. It didn't make as big a deal about that as it did Lauterpacht's. He seemed to be more of a focus than Lemkin, who I believe is the grandfather of Phillipe Sands. That is embarrassing. I should have written that down. Anyway, Raphael, his work was on genocide, and trying to bring that to the trial for the Nuremberg trials, to prosecute to the fullest extent of what that crime entails. Lauterpacht disagreed with that. I mean, he felt that they certainly committed crimes against humanity, for example, which was sort of what he brought to the table. And there were other lawyers too, but the main point was how close these two were, though they had never really at all sort of interacted until this trial. He felt that genocide as a term of law was too vague, and it protected groups, and by protecting groups as opposed to individuals, or it would actually create tensions among groups that would end up leading to further problems, despite the fact that this term is meant to prosecute them for doing something so horrible aimed at a particular group. It sort of has a cultural charge or racial charge or some other tribal charge, I guess, to it that will make people defensive and maybe more aggressive and lead to further problems down the line. And his main idea was that we should focus on the individual and protect the individual, as opposed to these groups, despite the fact that the individuals largely consisted of one group, but was not exclusive to, Jews in this case. And for me, it was really an amazing book. It is an incredible read. Steve Donahue recommended it to everybody in a number of videos, and I finally got around to it, and I am stunned. It has changed how I see law and how I think of international courts, I suppose, and the way law works and how it sets precedent and how you can sort of finagle with the language of like the terms of indictment, and how you can interpret that in different ways to interpret these things. It was amazing because all these people they're on the same team, but they want these people to face punishment for their crimes, but they still had a lot of infighting and politicking in a way, and it was just incredible. And for example, there's this passage that was incredibly important and was sort of fought over for a while, that I wish I had highlighted it and written it down. I read on my Kindle, so it's a little harder for me to flip through, unless there's some way to easily kind of glide through pages rather than doing that, which can be slow. But there was this passage that a certain piece of punctuation was used. It was a semicolon, and it connected the two ideas from the first part and the second part. And some people didn't like that because of how it read and how it could be interpreted for future cases, for this case, and it might weaken their case or strengthen the other case, because with the semicolon, it meant that any crimes at all from the beginning of when they were being committed, so before the war really, really got started in 1939, all of those crimes would be what's on the line here for the individual actors, as opposed to the SS or the Gestapo, which is, all these people saying, oh, I was following orders and that kind of thing. Again, with the individuals rather than groups, so they can't just blame the state. I was acting on... Anyway, so they changed it to a comma, and with the comma, it could be barely, almost no other changes, if any. If I remember, the comma was the only change, and with the comma, the interpretation that the lawyers and the judges took was that no crimes before the war could be indicted, enacted, or prosecuted for, but anything after is a war crime, and we can prosecute for that. And I had never, that just blew my mind. That simple change in punctuation fundamentally changed the course of law in a way, especially the Nuremberg trials, for what they become prosecuted for. It's a book that it made me really interested in international law, and I there's so much to it that is incredible. I mean, it has a history of Lviv in a way, and definitely about the two men, Raphael Lemkin and Hirsch Lauterpacht, and it talks about Hans Frank, and it kind of details the trial, but the fight to get these guys convicted. It's incredible and well worth your time. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thank you for watching. Have a good